She got knocked down, then got right back up and walked straight at a legend. What Sophie Cunningham did next shocked everyone in the arena.
Okay, first of all, I know the history behind the WNBA. I know that both of those cities have had teams before and they got us where we're at, so I'm thinking...
Nobody expected what happened next. Not the 16,000 fans in the arena, not the Liberty bench, not the referees, and definitely not Breanna Stewart. When Sophie Cunningham got hit in the ribs and fell hard on the Barclays Center floor, everyone thought she would be helped straight to the bench by the trainers. But instead, something happened that made millions of people replay the moment again and again. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that one decision from Sophie changed the tone of the entire rivalry going into the 2026 season. Now let's break it down. It was April 25th, 2026, at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty in a preseason game. Even though it was just preseason, nothing about it felt casual. Preseason is supposed to be controlled, light minutes, simple rotations, no drama, and a quick handshake at the end. Both teams wanted a clean game. Coaches wanted to test lineups. Players just wanted rhythm and no injuries. But things were already messy for Indiana. Caitlin Clark was being carefully managed, spending time on the bench with a heating pad on her lower back as a precaution. Coach Stephanie White later said it was planned, but it still raised concerns. Aaliyah Boston had twisted her ankle and was being checked in the tunnel. Kelsey Mitchell was dealing with foul trouble. That left Sophie Cunningham as one of the only physical players left on the court for Indiana. Someone known for taking on tough defensive assignments that nobody else wants. And that's where everything started to shift. In a game like this against a team like the Liberty, that matters a lot because New York came in with a championship-level roster, led by Breanna Stewart, a two-time MVP who has seen everything in this league. Around her was a bench full of experienced players who are used to big playoff moments and pressure games. Indiana ended up winning the game 109-91, but the final score isn't the main focus here. The real story is the play itself. Stewart was setting up near the elbow area. Sophie Cunningham was guarding her closely and trying to front her, doing her defensive job at that point. The ball was already being passed somewhere else. The possession was basically over for that side of the action. Sophie had dropped her hands and was starting to turn and run back on defense. She was no longer engaged in the play. That's when Breanna Stewart's right elbow came through during the movement. The key detail people are talking about is how the contact happened. It didn't look like a natural, harmless motion from boxing out. It looked like a swinging follow-through after contact, which is exactly the kind of thing officials usually look at closely when deciding on a foul. A lot of things in basketball can be explained away as accidental or just part of the game. But when there's clear follow-through after contact, people don't always see it as a simple mistake. They see intent. The impact was so loud that fan videos from the lower bowl picked it up clearly. That heavy thud everyone who's been around basketball recognizes instantly. Sophie hit the floor hard. The air left her body. She immediately grabbed her ribs and stayed down for a moment. For about 4 seconds, the Indiana Fever bench didn't react. It was like everyone was processing what had just happened. Then things started moving. Aaliyah Boston stepped forward. Coach Stephanie White began walking toward the court. A trainer grabbed a towel and moved in to help Sophie up, but Sophie didn't go with them right away. She pushed herself up with one hand, stood, and instead of walking to the bench or the tunnel, she walked straight toward Breanna Stewart. She didn't go to the referee. She didn't go to her teammates. She went directly to Stewart. They came face to face. Sophie pointed and spoke her mind right there in front of everyone, still holding her ribs as she stood her ground. No one expected that moment. Not her teammates, not the officials, not anyone in the arena. Usually, a player in pain goes straight to the bench, but Sophie chose to stay in the moment and respond right there on the court. Stewart stepped back a couple of times. She stayed calm, didn't react with laughter or emotion, and let the moment pass without escalating it further. She didn't raise her hands like someone who felt fully in control of the situation. Instead, she took a couple of slow steps back and let the official step between them. And in that brief moment, just a few seconds where one of the league's top forwards backed away from a role player holding her ribs, it looked to many like the balance of the situation had shifted right there on live TV. That's what the footage shows. But to really understand why that moment got so much attention, you have to look at the bigger picture. This wasn't just two players arguing after a hard play. It was part of a much more physical, emotional matchup where tensions were already building. At that point in the game, Indiana's situation was already stretched thin. Caitlin Clark was on the bench managing her back. Aaliyah Boston had gone to the tunnel after an ankle issue. Kelsey Mitchell was dealing with foul trouble. That meant Indiana was missing 3 of its biggest offensive threats on the floor. Sophie Cunningham was left as one of the few remaining physical presences, the kind of player who does the tough, gritty work, absorbing contact, setting hard screens, defending aggressively, and setting the tone physically. So when the elbow contact happened in that exact moment, it didn't feel small anymore to people watching. It wasn't just a normal boxing out situation or a loose physical play that gets ignored and moved on from. It was interpreted by many as something more loaded, a statement in a game where Indiana's stars were already limited, and where physicality suddenly felt like part of the message being sent. And Sophie responded to that moment by getting back up, bruised ribs and all, and walking straight toward the most decorated player on the opposing team. She didn't hesitate. She made it clear in front of everyone in the arena, and everyone watching on their phones, that if you're going to come through Indiana's players, you're going to have to deal with her first. That's why the clip spread so fast. It wasn't just the contact. It was the reaction, the emotion, and the confrontation that followed. Within hours, it had already been viewed millions of times. Now the conversation shifted to the officiating. From the replay angle, many expected a harsher call on the play. The contact looked heavy, and the follow-through made it more controversial for some viewers, but it was ruled a common foul. No flagrant review. No ejection. No technicals issued after the confrontation. No immediate disciplinary action announced after the game. The lead official, positioned nearby, had a clear view of the play but still let it stand as a regular foul. Later that night, the league released a short statement saying the situation would be reviewed and handled through normal procedures. For fans who follow the league closely, that wording is familiar. It usually means the footage will be looked at internally, and if anything happens, it will likely be a fine or private warning rather than a major punishment. And that's where the frustration starts for many viewers, because the same type of response has been used before in other controversial situations across the league, including moments involving high-profile players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It has also been used multiple times after incidents involving Brittany Griner. And the pattern feels familiar to many longtime fans and former players. The language from the league often sounds serious on paper, but the actual consequences don't always seem to match the tone. That gap between statement and action is what keeps coming up in these discussions. Now, former players from earlier eras, names from the Lisa Leslie and Lauren Jackson generation, have been reacting to the clip on social media. Some of them are basically saying this is the kind of inconsistent officiating that eventually leads to someone getting seriously hurt in a high-profile moment if the league doesn't step in and take stronger, clearer action. Their concern isn't just about one play. It's about a pattern they feel has been building for years. Physical games, unclear enforcement, and reactions that come too late to actually prevent escalation. And that's where the debate has landed again, between what the league says it wants and what actually happens on the floor when things get heated in real time.